Media Dialogues in 2022.
Hello, welcome to Media Dialogues. I'm Anuradha SenGupta. There's a lot of buzz in the retail sector with many new developments, including India's plans to create an open network digital commerce platform. The pandemic years have seen a massive shift to e-commerce, and while a bulk of that has been via marketplaces like Amazon and Walmart own Flipkart, many retailers have pivoted to their own online storefronts. Making this possible are companies like Shopify that offer tools to create the e-commerce infrastructure and interface that's required. In India, merchants using Shopify include high street brands like Lakme, Calabar, Le 15, Blue Tokai, John Jacobs, High Design, and many smaller outfits and brands as well. To get a better idea of the trends and potential in the retail sector, I'm joined now by Bharati Balakrishnan. She's the country head and director of Shopify in India. Bharati, it's so good to see you in the studio. Thank you for coming in.
Thank you, Anuradha, for having me. I've been a long admirer of your show, and
that's
it's
a great start to the show.
To be here. No, absolutely. Looking forward to this.
Great. So much is happening in the retail landscape. Shopify has been in India, I think, for almost 10 years, right? Mm-hmm. What would you say are some of the really big developments that have changed the name of the game in retail?
Let me start with our journey first, and
Sure.
then I'll speak to some of the broader changes. I think of Shopify's journey in India in three phases. We really started in India with our partners. Our partners are typically small entrepreneurs, thousands of them in India now, who support merchants go online globally. And that was our journey for many, many years in India. But I think what started changing around the mid-2010s was there was a real change in the way e-commerce was growing. The fundamentals were built. There was logistics and payments that you could actually use and access. And that led to the first D2C brands coming online, and we were the D2C brand sweetheart. And so there were all these niches in which D2C brands started being born online. And then now, Anuradha, post-COVID in the last 2-3 years, I feel like we've really broken out.
Yeah, there's a before COVID and an after COVID for almost everything in life, isn't it? And definitely for the retail sector.
Yeah, definitely for retail, definitely for us. Our merchant base has grown 3x in just the last 2-3 years. And I think two big things have happened, right? D2C brands who were born in the early mid-2010s have really taken to scale. They are now going offline. They're claiming their space.
It's a sort of reverse
Absolutely,
journey.
right? So brands like Sugar Cosmetics, which you see on the high street now, or Boat, these are guys who are really coming into their own across channels. They're big brands in their own right. And then because e-commerce itself has now become a $40-50 billion market annually, you're seeing D2C brands born in small categories that you've never imagined, right? So fashion jewelry, gardening equipment, kitchen accessories, fitness accessories. These are really small, used to be small niche categories, but once the market's 50 billion and growing at 20 to 25%, each of these categories grows up, right? And they create white spaces. And we've seen brands come onto the platform and come into their own. And that's what's happening on the D2C side. And then if you look at the traditional brand side, that is super exciting. Personally, for me, very motivating because these are brands that I grew up with. Brands like Duraflex, Go Colors. You know, they've sort of woken up and said, look, you know, in the last 5 years, we've started looking at e-commerce somewhat seriously. That's been accelerated by COVID. But now we realize that our own website, our own channel is equally important. It helps us really offer the expression of the brand we want. And let's face it, right? Even if you look at a hoarding today, you're going to Google and land up at my website. And then sort of look at my merchandise, explore it, watch my Instagram, and then sort of walk into the store. So your own website is not just a sales channel, right? It's become far more than that.
It's also a brand experience.
Exactly. At the very minimum, it's an experience. It goes on to drive sales for you. And whatever you know about your customer on your website is your own, unlike every other channel, right? So if you're going to introduce a new set of products, this is the most loyal set of customers who've come and sought you out, who are going to give you the best insights on what's going on.
So if I'm a merchant, I then, you know, between having my own storefront and the marketplace, what are the benefits of each? Because I'm guessing now it's not an either or, it is an and.
Absolutely. I think I take that one step further and say that if you're a brand in India today, I hope the argument on online and offline is behind us.
It's behind us.
I think omni-channel is here to stay. And honestly, historically, as a student of retail in India, this has always been the case, right? I'm sure you still shop at the neighborhood Kirana store. You also go to the hypermarket in your neighborhood. You now also order online. Similarly here, all channels are here to stay, and each brand in its category, in its segment, depending on its positioning, will find a place for all the channels that make sense for it, right? Having said that, I think your own website, like I said, number one, at a minimum guarantees you deliver the ethos of your brand best. When you're small, I've seen founders of little D2C brands make the time to call consumers every day, get that feedback, put it into the product, deliver that insight, deliver a better product,
And
get
tweak
the
what they're
flywheel.
offering.
Exactly. That's how you get the flywheel going, and online lets you do that so easily. And today you'll see often, like some of these D2C brands, they launch new products to a loyal cohort that has been shopping on their own website, right? That is very hard to access on marketplaces, whether they're online or offline. And so that's the second, I'd say. And the third is really, if you manage this well and you drive good organic and repeat, your own website can be really good margin and profits for the business. So that's one other reason.
The chain between the merchant, from the time I've made my purchase to the delivery to me at home. Is that perhaps where having your own storefront can be more challenging than being on the marketplace, because we know what the giant marketplaces offer?
Right. So all of these services are typically offered as plugins as part of Shopify, right? So if you come on and you decide to sell, let's say dresses, you would choose your logistics partner, you would choose your shipping partner, you would choose a guy to do your reviews, manage that, etc. So all of these are offered as services, and many brands honestly today manage this across all their channels, right? So if I'm a meaningful brand, like let's say a Duraflex, I run my warehouses, I decide what I want to showcase on which marketplace versus my own store.
So you say it's not really, it's not that much of an advantage, the kind of delivery and logistics support that a marketplace can offer?
I think that there is always something better that can be done with allied services like payments and logistics, and that's an ongoing journey. But I'd say today the market has hit a level of maturity where that is possible, and there are many brands doing this for themselves at scale across their own channels as well as marketplaces.
Bharati, give me a sense of how shopping behavior, consumer behavior when it comes to e-commerce has changed thanks to the COVID experience. Really, what are the changes and the ones that are going to last?
Yeah, I think there are some really exciting changes that are here to stay. So again, we should all agree that online and offline are going to merge. What is going to find its level? Both are here to stay. However, I find 2 or 3 things that consumers are doing very fascinating, right? Like take my father, who was a fringe shopper, grudgingly bought something online like a mobile phone, maybe once in 4 years, till the pandemic happened, and now he's happily shopping for biscuits and shirts and hangers and what have you, right? So I feel like there were a lot of guys who came to online maybe once a year, and their frequency has gone up dramatically. Their habits have changed, at least for certain categories. The second thing I find incredible is consumers in tier 2, tier 3 cities have access to brands like never before, both traditional as well as D2C, right? So there are D2C brands today, Anuradha, who literally in year 2 are looking at tier 2 and tier 3 far more seriously than metros, depending on their positioning. I was in Jodhpur and I saw Sugar Cosmetics store there, and Sugar's probably already been selling into Jodhpur before they got there, right? And similarly, like for traditional brands who have not been able to use typical models to go to smaller cities, now they can actually extend their online website to those cities and do business. So that's a trend that's here to stay, and I see that tier 2, tier 3 customers are spoiled for choice. And the third and fun trend that is particularly close to me is, I think through COVID, we've seen that now every household has 2 smartphones. And while the woman's always been the decision maker around consumption at home, I think the amount of time you and I have spent on the phone means our nature of discovering new brands, new products for the household has completely changed. And I think that is going to drive a lot of how brands get discovered in the future, and is important to take into consideration as we come out of COVID and go into consumption over the next few years.
Right. Give us a sense of the kind of pain points that merchants and people who go online and get into e-commerce are facing. And I'm guessing that there would be filters of scale here, right?
That's right.
So the small merchant who goes online and a well-known high street brand that creates its own shop front, there would be very different pain points.
Yeah, as you were asking that, I was reflecting that many of that is similar and many quite different. I think with the young brands, I would say D2C now has become a playbook. So you kind of know the tools, you know how you have to run your performance marketing, how you have to do organic, how you think about the product, hopefully has come from some passion, right?
Yeah.
So as it becomes more of a playbook, I think the biggest pain point for merchants entering on the D2C side is how do you differentiate? How do you create loyalty, right? And that is an ongoing brand journey. And at every stage, you have to reinvent that. So I'd say that is the single biggest challenge.
Okay.
With the established brands who are coming online for the first time, that's actually a strength, right? Duraflex is a household name. Go Colors, everybody knows and probably uses. But how do they sort of navigate the technology, the channel nuances? How do you speak to consumers? How are you quick to respond? How agile you make the rest of your organization becomes really the challenge to take on.
Right. What are the aspirations? Let's go to the other side. What are the aspirations? What do you see as the ambition that is being displayed by merchants who want to come on board? And again, again, the filter of scale, I'm sure would be very different, would impact their ambitions.
Yeah, I have so many exciting stories to share there. I think one clear trend we're seeing is the number of brands that are aspiring to go global. Especially ones that serve the Indian diaspora. Brands like Tilfi, Little Muffet, established brands like Meena Bazaar, Sundari Silks, who in their communities are very well known.
It's so lovely to hear these names because you're very familiar with some of them because of the geographies they inhabit, right? And how they become dominant over a period of time. And today, if they're going global, it's just fabulous to know.
And they have a loyal audience that sort of now lives globally and they aspire to sort of service them, right? So that's one big trend. I think the second big trend that I personally enjoy is the number of female entrepreneurs who are founding brands. There are sisters coming together, friends coming together. And I think that brings a very interesting consumer lens to brands that perhaps we've never had before in this country at such scale, right? So it's very exciting to watch those brands grow. There are other trends around, how traditional brands view this channel. They experiment with their assortment, they experiment with their pricing, they introduce products first here because the feedback loop is faster. So those are also very interesting lessons for brands to move faster in other channels.
Right. There's so much conversation now about the Metaverse, right? Web 3.0, Metaverse. How do all of these technological this technological evolution, these disruptions, how is that getting assimilated into the kind of solutions that someone like your company will have to offer?
Yeah, it's quite a what should I say, a fountain to drink from, right? There are so many options coming. I want to start by what I believe is fundamentally what's changed post-COVID, right? So I think we all know e-commerce is here to stay. We know it's omni-channel. But I think what we need to internalize, even as users and end consumers, is where we spend time is where we are spending our money, right? So you and I, we are constantly on YouTube, on Instagram, on WhatsApp. We see something we like. It's probably an influencer who's telling us that she wore this jewelry to a function and people liked it, and you're looking to buy that. So the way you're buying is changing. And
any place could be
any place, right? Exactly.
A stimulus that would trigger a purchase.
Yeah, and so we really believe that every surface where users engage is an opportunity for our merchants, and it is our job to deliver that, right? So this could be someone sending you a collection, their latest collection on WhatsApp, for example. And in that journey, there could be things like AR, there could be VR, there could be paying with cryptocurrency, there could be NFTs, and a lot of this is happening. Brands are experimenting with that, both globally and in India. I do say to brands that there's so much to take in that you may want to pace this out, get the basics right, make sure you're already doing omni-channel to start with, make sure you're getting the basic experience right across channels, your assortment's available everywhere, your supply is sorted, and then take on experiments versus engines, right? Build the engines first.
So you have some data that's come out of a survey that you all have conducted, which I have. It's quite interesting for me to see that people say, some of the consumers you all have surveyed say that they would be open to using crypto. But given how fluid the situation is around crypto, do you see real understanding of what that means, or is it, how do I really understand this?
Yeah, I think it's still early days in India, but in the US now, I think we offer the most options in terms of cryptocurrency to actually shop. Again, it's still a beta program. And I think it just boils down to if you had 100 rupees and some of it was in crypto, would you like to start using it to make payments where you thought that was the right way to go, right? And when we see that trend with buyers, we go back to our merchants, we test it, and we say, okay, let's go and offer that, and let's make one more thing easier for the merchant to do more business. That's how we see it.
In India, was UPI like a big,
Of course.
open sesame, the magic word to sort of galvanize everything, isn't it?
Of course, of course. I think UPI continues to be a very dominant mode of payment and growing for several of our merchants. It again varies quite a bit across stages and positioning of the brand.
Give us some insights into that in terms of payments used and, whether it changes with geography, whether there are trends in the way people, for instance, I remember a time when marketplaces were not too keen to do cash on delivery in certain PIN codes, right? We've all been through that kind of evolution.
Right.
So how much have things changed? What are some of the insights you can offer here?
I think the very important insight from a Shopify perspective is that mostly you are seeing brands speak to you, right? And people trust brands, they discover brands, they follow them. And so they're much more comfortable with more prepaid modes of payment. And so we see a mix of course, credit card, debit card, and UPI. COD continues to be a driver of business. But I see that UPI is really taking on share. And, Anuradha, through COVID, many brands have gone into tier 2 and tier 3 cities. And over there, as you sort of leave behind folks with cards, UPI takes on, right? So I think UPI will continue to help digitize more and more transactions that may not be prepaid today, as well as take share from prepaid transactions.
Right. In 2021, between Jan and September, you saw a 42% increase in custom storefronts compared to the previous year. So that's 2020.
Yes.
Talk to us a little bit more.
Yeah, I think that goes back to the point on, one of our big drivers in the Future of Commerce report as well is around building customer loyalty.
Yeah.
And I think that comes from, we're at this stage now, and I would say even in India, where D2C brands have a playbook, right? The barriers to entry to getting a D2C brand up and running are not significant. So what are you going to do next to differentiate, right? You're going to figure out how to do performance marketing. You're going to figure out your supply chain, your product. Hopefully that's differentiated by itself, but what beyond that? So we find that people use our tools, merchants use our tools often as a means to express the brand, right? So what are the kind of themes you use on the website? How do you bring in a customer? Like, there's a small brand called Wishing Chair that does a little newsletter that is really lovely and personal and really speaks to the brand, right? These are tools now that are available on the storefront that you could use and switch out and switch in depending on what's working for you. We see that uptake a lot, which tells me that brands are starting to focus on loyalty.
Let's talk about some of the news developments in the last couple of weeks. So the first one is the open network distribution commerce platform that India is planning to create. What does this mean for Shopify? Is that a potential opportunity to continue doing things, or is that another marketplace into which your merchants will plug in? How do you see this?
Yeah. Look,
I'm sure you're watching all this very carefully, isn't it?
Yes, we are early students of the ONDC. As I understand it, we really welcome the ONDC's objective in democratizing commerce. And to be honest, philosophically, it really resonates with our mission for making commerce better for everyone. I think we are in the early stages of figuring out what our role is to play. And I see that our merchants are likely to benefit from being able to access more buyers that they may not have had direct access to. And as we understand that further, we will definitely figure out what our role is in delivering that to our merchants.
Is it at this point of time really focusing on the small kirana stores or the mom and pop grocer stores that we know, the grocers that we know of, or would it encompass everybody like the other private marketplaces?
I think it would encompass anyone who wants to sell online and anyone who wants to buy online, right? And so sellers, I would hope, go beyond the definition of kiranas onto, small fashion sellers who are our merchants or home decor sellers and such. And I think these merchants, Anuradha, are super enterprising, right? They are always looking for new audiences to go to. And to the extent that any platform helps us connect them to more buyers, we feel that's our responsibility and we will work on that.
Right. Soon to be 10 years in India. When you look back at this journey, what are some of the things you think Shopify needs to do going forward?
Right.
Will we see a big burst advertising campaign? Because you haven't advertised, you haven't needed to really go out and evangelize your brand and your services. But do you see that going to change going forward? We just had an announcement from Amazon, the smart commerce facility that they'll offer, which is in direct competition with Shopify. So do we see things changing?
Right. So I think for anyone in the consumer business globally, India is a priority market, as it is for us, right? And as far as the India business is concerned, I have 3 priorities. We have 2 very clear merchant segments who are growing with us, the D2C brands and the traditional brands. And they are and continue to grow faster than the market, which is already growing very fast. So delivering for them all the tools they need to succeed, reducing the complexity, at least as far as technology and operations go for them, is a key priority, right? We continue to work on that. Number 2, my job is to bring more product to India, and that is a never-ending treadmill. I think 10 years from now, I will still be saying, oh, there are these 5 other things that we'd love to do for India, and we're in the process of doing.
So Bharati, there are tailwinds, right? Really good, benign tailwinds at this point of time where the retail sector is concerned, where e-commerce is concerned. What are the challenges, if you were to crystal ball, where do you see some roadblocks, barriers, challenges emerge?
Yeah, before I get into the challenges, I do want to take a moment to appreciate what this ecosystem has achieved in the last 10 years. You know, in 2010, if you were a brand and you wanted to open your online store, you would have to build it yourself. You would have to figure out payments on your own. You would have to figure out your warehouse and your last mile on your own, and then figure out cash on delivery. It was near impossible, which is probably why it didn't see scale. We've solved for a large part of all that, right? Getting your storefront up and running with someone like Shopify is probably a day's job. If you're really good, maybe a week. There's payments and logistics to plug in and get started, right? So those are really the amazing things we sit at. We've also crossed the 100 million shopper mark, right, as a country online. I think the challenges to come are also interesting opportunities, Anuradha. I think we're all looking forward to the next 100 million shoppers who come on to the online bandwagon, if you will, in the next few years to come. But I think they're going to be very different in the way they behave. Look, they're already in the digital funnel, right? They're already consuming content, they're watching video, they're seeing products. But how is that going to translate to commerce? There's various theories, there's live streaming, there's crypto, there's all sorts of things, I think, but we don't really know how that's going to translate yet. And a lot of work is being done, and we're very excited to sort of see that happen. The second challenge, I'd say, is I think we were speaking about this a while back, but the amount of technology that's being thrown at brands, I'd say, is quite complex. I think it's important to focus on the basics. Make sure that you're available where your demand is. Make sure that you stick to the basics on the brand and deliver that no matter which channel you're operating in. And make sure that you've got your supply sorted and available and flexible for what are these very fragmented new channels of demand. So I think brands need to pace what technology they adopt to really win.
You're saying that brands could take it a little slow?
I think so. I think differentiate between the engines and the experiments. Make sure you build the engines and then go on to the experiments. Experiments are always exciting. They speak to your audiences, they create excitement for your brand, but get the engines in place first. And the third is, I think, and we speak about it in our Future of Commerce report as well, there is incredible supply chain complexity that's come on with a level of demand fragmentation, as well as this need to buy quickly, this need to sort of turn things quickly, right?
10-minute delivery?
10-minute delivery is one good example of things that are really changing the way supply chains work. And I think when we look at omni-channel and supply chain and complex subjects like that, we often tend to forget that it also means a lot of people change. It also means a lot of organizational change. So I would say to brands and heads of brands that take people in your stride, and making the right org changes is as important as implementing the right technology and taking on the challenges that come with the business. So these would be, I'd say, opportunities more than challenges to take on the next 100 million shoppers in this country.
Great insights, Bharati. Thank you so much. I really enjoyed this conversation. It really, I think from your vantage point, what you make of the retail landscape offers us great insights. Thank you very much. I wish you and the entire team at Shopify a lot of good luck.
Thank you so much, Anuradha. Thank you for having us.
And catch us again soon for another conversation on Media Dialogues.
Media Dialogues in 2022.